Hi guys, welcome back to the beginner's guide to gaining muscle. Firstly, I've got a new camera and the screen, I've just got used to looking up there, it's now on the side. So if I'm like that and then kind of focusing back, just bear with me because I'm going for a transitionary period. If you're stuck with me for this first video, thank you. The first one was quite a while ago. If we think back to the first video where I went over the basic principles when it comes to training, programming, what we can do to ensure that our training basically matches up with what we're trying to do from a muscle building perspective. The second video I delved into nutrition, and then in this final video I'm going to be talking to you guys about recovery. So recovery is obviously the third part of the three pillars, if you like, to building muscle, and often one that is overlooked. In fact, I remember when I first started training, I kind of looked at recovery and sleep as just this myth, this thing that you don't really need to pay much attention to. Ultimately, it's about what you can do in a gym and how much you can beat yourself up in the gym and create that stress. But if we actually start to delve into these measures, which a lot of people are still probably not doing, as a beginner, if we can just apply a little bit of more attention to these different details that I'm about to cover, you will find that your progress will just skyrocket tenfold. So in terms of recovery, what is recovery from a initial standpoint? So recovery is exactly what it says in the tin. We're recovering from the training stimulus that we've provided our body in the gym. And that's obviously from breaking tissue down. So from a recovery perspective, obviously up there with number one is going to be our nutrition, which we have already covered. So I won't delve into nutrition today. But from a recovery perspective, all we are really doing is putting our body in the utmost favorable position to be able to recover and come back stronger from the stress that we've done in the gym. So in the gym, we're breaking down muscle fibers, we're creating that stress, and then as long as we're eating the right foods and we're putting our body in a position to recover, we're then going to be able to come back stronger and dilate the muscles and grow muscle. And that's essentially how it works. So 5 principles I'm going to cover. The first one is just ensuring that your training volume matches your ability to recover. And something that I personally done wrong when I first started, and I see a lot of people do wrong when they first sort of join up with myself and they show me what they're currently doing. A lot of people will train too much in an attempt to try and get the biggest pump and train that muscle pump and train to failure with every single movement, when ultimately if you're not in a position where you can recover from that yet, then that's going to be inefficient and you're not going to be able to recover. So just ensuring that the training volume you apply to your training, you can recover from that. You know, and I went a little bit more into depth with this in our first video, which was just covering training programming. But essentially, we just need to ensure that what we're doing in the gym, we can recover from. And the main way of monitoring that is just through logbook. As long as your logbook numbers are moving up, muscle soreness is not inhibiting you from progressing further, you're probably in a good spot to keep driving up training performance. Now, the second variable that is very important when it comes to recover is sleep and rest. Now, sleep and rest are two kind of things that coincide with each other, because a large portion of your rest is going to be when you're asleep. You know, we spend anywhere up to half of our time in bed, of our life, should I say, in bed. So we want to ensure that our sleep is of good quality. Now, I won't delve so much into sleep on this video because that's a video in itself. I will obviously do a separate video on that. But just ensuring that we're putting ourselves in the best possible position for our body, not only to sleep and get our 8 hours, which is what I would recommend, but to ensure that that 8 hours is of good quality. And that's all going to be about that evening routine, that evening window before we actually hit the hay and decide to go to sleep. So just ensuring we're getting a minimum of 8 hours, and we're trying to do the utmost best to have, you know, good sleeping routine, good circadian rhythm, where we're going to bed at the same time, waking up the same time, limiting blue light exposure in the evenings, limiting the time we're sort of artificially stimulated, and just doing the best we can to set ourselves up for a good period in the hay. And then managing stress. Obviously, managing stress is going to be a huge pinpoint, you know, when it comes to putting your nervous system in a position that it wants to be in, to rest, to digest food, to recover, to rebuild muscle fibers. You know, if we're continually in our heightened state of stress, you know, fight or flight, when our body's overproducing cortisol, overproducing adrenaline in that response where we're looking to kind of combat stress and external stress or psychological stress, we're really not setting ourselves up in a favorable position to recover. So from a recovery standpoint, if we can not only manage our sleep routine and our rest and the period that we are away from the gym, but on top of that, if we can look to manage our stress, that's going to really, really help the body, to recover from the training stress. Because the stress that the training that we're doing in the gym environment, that is in fact stress. That is a training stress. We are producing cortisol, adrenaline. Our body is in that fight or flight state, and that's the state that it needs. That is an internal mechanism, which is a very important mechanism. And we need that to train. We need that because if danger came our way, if suddenly a bus was coming our way in the street and we didn't have that internal mechanism, we'd get run over. We wouldn't have that quick flinch to jump out of the way. So we need that response. But if we're continually over arousing that response, that's gonna really affect how we manage our food, how we partition nutrients, how we rest, and ultimately it's going to affect our recovery. So managing stress is going to be a huge factor. And again, that's a very big topic and one that I'll delve into in other videos. But if you can do the best you can to compartmentalize your day, to-do lists, practice mindfulness where possible. So the other end of the scale, we're very mindful in what we are doing in all of our practices, and we're not continually allowing brain clutter just to kind of circulate. That's going to really help and be very beneficial. Now, supplements is something that a lot of people want to talk about first. We want to talk about what supplements you take in and what supplements should I take for this and that. And ultimately, if you're not nailing the fundamentals, supplements are not really going to do a great deal. But some supplements that I will get a lot of my clients on, or all of my clients on, when it comes to recovery, is going to be things that are going to help to reduce the inflammation. Because ultimately in the gym, we're creating that lactate stress, we're creating that muscle tissue damage, that myofibril inflammation, which is essentially what we're trying to do. We want that stress, we want to recover. And then in that recovery process, if we can encourage that inflammation to subside, we're going to help to speed up that recovery process. And a massively beneficial supplement for that is going to be curcumin. Now, curcumin is a huge beneficiary when it comes to its anti-inflammatory potential, and I'd recommend anyone take this. So curcumin is always going to be the number one. Just ensure we're taking it away from the training proximity, because if you train and then bang a load of curcumin, what we're doing is we're kind of limiting that stress response that we've just tried to create in the gym. So you always want to take it away from that training proximity. Another good supplement which is also going to help with this is going to be omega-3. Now, omega-3 is the beneficiaries of omega-3 are endless. I could talk about omega-3 all day, but ultimately when it comes to recovery, what it's going to help with is going to help with your cardiovascular system and your aerobic capacity, which it's going to help with that oxidative buildup that we're again creating within our training. And it's also going to help with inflammation as well. And then finally, I would say that other supplements are going to be person dependent, but a good whey protein is always going to be beneficiary, and that kind of edges on the nutritional route. And then other things such as ashwagandha, lion's mane, which are all going to be helping to kind of reduce cortisol and put your body in a more relaxed position. Again, that's person dependent, because if you're typically a very chilled person, you may not need to be wasting money and ramming home loads of ashwagandha, lion's mane, and all these other supplements. But supplements should be way down on the list. And then finally, tracking variables. So tracking variables, a lot of people think it's a bit of a waste of time, but I can tell you 100% that tracking things such as your sleep stages, how much rapid eye movement we're getting, how much stages 1, 2, 3, 4 we're getting. Tracking your HRV, so your heart rate variability, another separate video in itself, but this is going to essentially tell us where your autonomic balance lies, how parasympathetic or sympathetic dominant you are, and therefore where your rate of stress is. And actually tracking this and kind of seeing where on the scale you are is going to really help you to indicate when it's time to keep pushing or potentially pull back. And if you're kind of in this heightened state of stress and tracking your HRV is telling you that, that's when it's potentially a good idea to take an additional rest day. Above the 5 pointers really oversees everything, and it's really obvious, but ensuring you rest, and I know we've covered rest already with recovery, but this is something that I see a lot of people not doing enough, and there's memes floating about Arnold, what is rest, how do we train that muscle group? let me tell you now, Arnold Schwarzenegger rested. He took rest days. I'm looking at the wrong screen again. He took rest days. Every good bodybuilder takes rest days. Every person trying to build tissue and being successful at that takes rest days. If we're continually accumulating stress and fatigue, inflammation from that training response, and we're not allowing our body a chance at a 24-hour window where it can actually recover from that training stress, you're going to run out of steam very, very quickly. And that's something I wish I knew as a newbie. I remember going a month straight without taking a day off once, and I was almost very proud of that. You know, I don't need to rest. But ultimately, if I was to rest, progress would have been much better. So let's ensure we're resting. And again, how many rest days you take is going to be person dependent. So those are the key variables that we've covered in recovery, guys. I hope that one has been helpful. We've pretty much covered the main fundamentals now when it comes to, you know, how to build muscle and how to go about that in the most effective manner. Within doing these videos, it's kind of created more avenues for other videos. So I'll be doing more videos where we delve solely into sleep, where we delve solely into stress management, and all these other elements which kind of coincide with each other. But as always, if anyone's got any suggestions and if anyone wants kind of any specific topics covered, please feel free to drop a message in the comment section below. Hope this has been helpful. Happy building muscle, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.